Hello up, Terriers fans, and welcome to the latest in our opposition previews. Following our 0-0 draw with Swansea at the Liberty Stadium, we return to Dean Court to face a Huddersfield Town side in fine form, with their latest victory on Tuesday, beating Sheffield Wednesday 2-0 at home. Now today, I've got a very special guest, a player who is a legend for the Terriers, a club who he grew up supporting and playing with in two different spells, with a career spanning from 1992 to 2009, with a number of promotions with the club. He played a total of 393 games, whilst also scoring 137 goals for the club. And he also spent 5 years with Sheffield Wednesday in the Premier League, scoring 28 goals. It is a pleasure to welcome to back of the net, Andy Booth. How you doing, Andy? Good to see you.
And you, Craig? I'm doing very well, thank you.
Excellent, good stuff. So you're currently club ambassador at Huddersfield. What does that role entail?
It's quite a busy role actually, and a role that I'm lucky to have. Thoroughly enjoy it. It's, as I say, it's all completely different every day. Some days I'm working with the commercial department, with the sponsors, the box holders of the club. Other days I'm working with our town foundation. I've got to admit, I do a lot in the community. So I work a lot with our town foundation. We have local other charities that we try and raise awareness for, and obviously important funds. I go into schools to talk about my career, to talk about all different kind of things, whatever really the teacher wants me to try and get over to the students, to the pupils. So it is very, very varied. Today I've been we usually have obviously hospital visits with all the players, and unfortunately, due to the COVID situation, the players are not allowed to visit today. So I've just been in and around the hospitals delivering the presents, and then we'll be sorting messages out from the players to the children that are in there. So as I say, every day is different, but I'm so lucky to have a role that I love, and to be involved with a club that I supported, like you said, and obviously lucky enough to play for.
An absolutely lovely thing that you're doing there as well, Andy, and full respect to you for that. I wanted to discuss your career, because as everybody knows, you used to score a lot of goals for Huddersfield in two separate spells. Now, your first goal against the Terriers was back in March 1994, which was a 2-1 win for the Terriers at Dean Court. What are your memories of playing against Bournemouth as a player?
Well, I do hope that game. I think I can remember. Obviously, we won 2-1, and I think I scored a header late on against. My memory's changed. What's the keeper called? And I think he came to. I do apologise for that, but I can remember going up and challenging him, and I'm winning the header, and I think it was like in the last 10 minutes. You correct me if I'm wrong here. We're going back a long time, and that really was the run that started me on my career, to be honest, because I played a few times in the team and not really done much, and then I just got back in, and I think I scored a couple, and then that game down at Bournemouth, I think we were bottom of the league, or we was moving up, and we had to win quite a lot of games to stay up, and that was an important victory for us, and it just gave us that stepping stone to survive relegation that year. And it's always nice to, and not for obviously yourself and not for the Cherries fans, but to go to be down at Bournemouth and come away with 3 points, because it's a hell of a journey back to Huddersfield, especially on a night match as well. So if you can get that with a win, then it makes it a lot easier travelling back. So it was an important win for us, because then obviously we saved relegation. I think we ended up about 5th or 6th from bottom. We went on a fantastic run. It was under Neil Warnock then, and then that gave us the confidence for the season after, and we got promotion. So it was a big game that, and it was important that if we'd have lost that, then it's probably we wouldn't have started that momentum, and I think we may have struggled and probably ended up being relegated. So it was an important game that night.
And Do tell us a little bit more about Neil Warnock as a manager to play under, because he's quite a character.
He's a big character, is Neil, and I've got to say he's the best manager I worked under. I've worked under good managers and some top managers, but if you have to ask me who's the best manager and who's my favourite manager, it always comes out Neil Warnock. Fantastic manager. You look at his results, where he's gone all of his career. He's done brilliantly. But for me, he gave me a chance. He showed confidence in me and threw me in, and it just worked. But as a manager, great, absolute fantastic motivator, great man manager, and you'd be in a dressing room like he'd make sure everybody in at 2:45, and start his team talk, and he'd go around. He'd start with the goalkeeper, and he'd go around to the fullbacks, and then he'd finish up with me and Ronnie Jepson, the centre forwards. And by the time 5-3 comes, you'd be banging that door down. And there were so many times we won games in the tunnel because we were that wound up. We scared half the opposition. We were in the faces, and some of the players we had back then were tough players. And for Neil, wound up as he did as well. But his motivation was brilliant. And there were times where we'd be struggling at half time, and you just have a team talk under Neil, and you feel $1 million, and then you come out second half and you put everything right. So it's not just, obviously he's done it for so long anyway, so it's not a fluke, but the way he manages is second to none. I've never worked under a manager like him, and we had some fantastic times there, and he built up a team spirit that he got all the lads. Like, I know it's a story, but he bought players from non-league. We had bricklayers, we had window cleaners, we had plasterers in that league, all playing non-league, and he went out, paid nothing for them, but knew they were exactly the players he wanted. He wanted them to run through brick walls, and that's what we did. And we're a tough team to beat, and it just shows with the results. And he's still doing that now. He doesn't spend much in the transfer market. He gets some great buys, and it's not just luck. He puts a lot of work into it.
And let's be honest, he's done very, very well wherever he's gone. Sheffield United back in 2006, I believe it was. Also Cardiff a couple of seasons ago, getting them up after a tricky spell for them as a club. So he's done a remarkable job. But the following season, you scored your second goal against us in October 1994. That was at the Macau Pine, as it was known at the time, in a Huddersfield 3-1 win. That was one of 28 goals that you scored that year. Now, do tell us a little bit more about that season, because it was quite a special season for the club.
Yeah. Well, it was obviously the first season in his new stadium as well. So it was important we had a good season. And I remember the first game at the new stadium, like everything, we lose. I think it was to Wycombe Wanderers. We lose that game, and you're thinking, oh no, it's not going to be a season like that. But no, we just went from strength to strength that season. As you say, I was lucky enough to get 28 goals. Ronnie Jepson, my strike partner, got 20 plus. I think we're the first two strikers for Huddersfield in 68 years to score 20 plus goals that season. So when you're scoring goals, and we had a tough defence as well, but it was just what got us through that. It was his team spirit. It was his work rate, and just everything came together. And as I say, we're a new stadium, and I still feel we were a bit unlucky. Obviously, we didn't get up automatically. I think there were only one went up that year, and I think it was Birmingham City that went up, and we ended up fifth and only really scraping in the playoffs. But for me that year, and Cherry fans might disagree, that we were the second best team in the league that year. So we really should have ended up either first or second. We threw it away the last couple of months of the season, but we managed to turn it round and and obviously got through the playoffs.
And you scored against Brentford in the semi-final, and also at the final at Wembley against Bristol Rovers. What was that feeling like to score at Wembley?
And I know it sounds a cliche, it's a dream come true, especially for for me, who was a local lad, supported the club. My mum and dad worked on the turnstiles. Well, they still do, to be fair, to bless them. Like they're nearly 80 and they still work on the turnstiles. They absolutely love it. So it's been part of my life, or all my life, so it seems. So to help score in the playoff semi-final and obviously to win on penalties, and then go to Wembley and score the first goal, I couldn't have asked for anything better. And the only thing is, and I scored in the 44th minute. Then Marcus Stewart, who came to the club 2 years later, who was a massive Huddersfield hero, scored about a minute later. So it felt like I couldn't celebrate. It'd been nice to go into the changing rooms 1-0 and I've scored that goal. It just seemed to be a bit short-lived, my goal. But no, fantastic scenes. I think there were 38,000 Huddersfield fans that day. And again, we go back. Marcus scored the goal, and we're going to half-time 1-1. And our heads were down in that changing room. I'll never forget it. It felt like we're losing 2 or 3-0, just because we did so well. We got the goal. We're thinking we're going to go into half-time 1-up, and to go in at 1-1, it was a bit devastating. And going back to Neil Warnock, usually half-time that happens, he'd give us a right roasting, a right rollicking for letting a goal in just after we'd scored, letting a goal in just before half-time. That was criminal to him. That you never did that. It felt like we'd lost a bit of concentration, but he didn't do that. He changed his tactic completely, and it was like a softly approach, and it was more building his confidence up, saying how well we'd done that half. Because I think if he'd have gone the other way, I think his edge would have dropped. So he had to pick us up, and he really did. And that, after all the team talks he'd done, shouting and screaming at us, throwing stuff, that one was completely different. And we went out at Wembley in that second half. We played ever so well, and obviously got the win we deserved.
Yeah, most definitely. In the following season, he was unlucky not to reach the playoffs in the old Division 1. Do tell us a little bit more about that team that year.
Yeah, it was exactly the same team, and I've got to admit, unfortunately, Neil left the club straight after the playoff final. He went down to Plymouth, so Brian Horton came in. Obviously, Brian had just been at Manchester City, so another great manager, fantastic gentleman as well is Brian, and he came in. And I think if we're all going to be honest, with the team we had, like I mentioned, there were the plasterers, window cleaners. We thought we'd struggle. You see some of the teams that were in the Championship then, you thought we might need snookers by Christmas. So, but I think it was the momentum, his confidence, his team spirit, and we just kept winning games. And we just felt like, hang on a minute, this isn't as hard a league as we thought it was going to be. So we kept winning games, and it's only really the last month or so we just fell apart a little bit and just couldn't. It looked like we were going to be in the playoffs again, and if we got to the playoffs, I think we'd have probably. I know it's easy saying it, but I think we would have gone up again. But Brian did a fantastic job to get us so close that year, and we were, apart from 2 or 3 games at the end of the season, which I don't know if it was 3 games too far for us, but we just fell short and we just missed out on the playoffs. But I'd say if we could have got in them, then you never know, we could have ended up in the Premier League.
Yeah, most definitely. And the following summer, you did end up in the Premier League yourself, joining Sheffield Wednesday for 2.7 million. Was it quite hard, though, still to leave your boyhood club?
It would have. Well, I'd say it was a difficult choice. It was the right choice. Yeah, it was hard because I'd played at Huddersfield all my career. Like I said, I'm a local boy, and I've got to admit, I weren't the most ambitious footballer, to be honest. And I could see me playing at Huddersfield all my career. So when Sheffield came, it just felt the right move, though. The right move for everybody. As you said, it was £2.7 million, which I think the club record fee before that was 250,000. So it was a hell of a transfer fee, and the club just couldn't turn it down. But it meant I could go play in the Premier League, get a chance playing in the Premier League, and it was at Sheffield Wednesday, which was just down the road, half an hour from Huddersfield. Obviously it's a massive club, but it didn't have the showbiz style of your Man Uniteds, your Liverpools, but still a fantastic club and still a yacht, and it was just a family club as well. So it was just perfect for me. It ticked all the boxes. So if I had to go to anywhere, I couldn't have asked for a better club to go to Sheffield.
And in your first season there, you was in a team that contained the likes of Paolo Di Canio, Benito Carboni, and you finished top scorer. Wednesday also went on to finish 7th that year. Who's the best player, Andy, that you played with and against during that time?
Oh, the Paolo and Benny, like you've mentioned, fantastic players. So much skill between them, and what they could do with the ball were unbelievable. They made me look stupid at times, but just to be on the same field as them too. And it wasn't luck either. People ask what Paolo were like. Paolo was a fantastic trainer, a great professional. Well, so was Benny. Both of them, you'd come in and they'd be on the training field before us lads were even out there. We were still drinking a coffee, and then we'd be going in again, having a cup of coffee, having his biscuits. I know it sounds stupid now. You wouldn't do that in this day, but there was always a cup of coffee and a biscuit waiting for me after training. But there'd be Benny and Paolo still be out there practicing the free kicks, passing to each other, and then we'd go home, and then Paolo would be going in the gym as well. So for him to be such a fantastic player, he worked it as well to even get better and better in his life. But it just, and then the television cameras came, and he'd act up like put on a show for the cameras, which were always great for the TV cameras. But great bloke, fantastic bloke with Pat. Well, both were, and great footballers. But we had likes of Des Walker. We had Des Walker play for England 70 odd times. Great footballer. We played with Wim Jonk, Dutch international. There were quite Andy Hinchcliffe at left back. I could name quite a few. All fantastic players, great lads as well, great professionals, and we had a great team spirit at Wednesday. In that time, probably the hardest player played against Stam at Man United. Neil Warnock, I had a right battle with Neil Warnock when he was at Liverpool, and it was the first time I've been to Anfield, and we beat him 1-0. But I was black and blue, and I think he was as well. We had a great battle, and at the end it was shake hands, having a drink in the bar afterwards. Game forgot, but I played down at Chelsea, and Ruud Gullit was playing, and I think he was the player manager then. And yeah, he was coming to the end of his career, but to be on the field with a player who'd been named FIFA's World Player of the Year, it was an honour for me. And I think we drew 2-2 that game, but it was head and shoulders even then above me and a lot of our team. He played sweeper, and it was just too easy for him. He'd be bringing balls down on his chest. He'd be pinging 50-yard balls on his right foot, left foot to Zola Vialli. And I can remember just standing there thinking, wow, should I really be on this pitch with a legend like that? But it was just an honour. And then you could talk about Canton. Played against Canton at Old Trafford that year, and then the Beckhams, the Giggs, Neville. I could keep naming a list. The Arsenal back four of Adams, Keown, Winterburn, Dixon, and David Seaman in goal. Such difficult opponents, but an honour to be on the same pitch as them. And we did all right, especially that first year. As you said, I was lucky enough to be the top goal scorer. And we ran out of steam at the end of the season. We should have ended up in Europe. As you said, I think we ended up 7th, did we? And the top 4 was in Europe, and we were in the top 4 to 5 most of that season. And it was disappointing that we just missed out. But again, we had a bad last month and didn't pick many points up. I think that's, do you know what, now we're talking, that's the recurrence of my career. Maybe it was me that weren't fit enough to, and always ran out of steam come end of March, April time.
And of course, you had spent 5 years with Wednesday, scoring in the process there, 28 goals. Is there any goal in particular during your time with Wednesday that stands out?
I would there's a few actually, but there's the one. It's basically 2 weeks. Unfortunately, David Pleated had got the sack, and Ron Atkinson came in, and I'd been injured for 10 weeks. So, and unfortunately for David, there were about 4 first-team players that were out of the team, but were getting back just for the Bolton Wanderers game, and unfortunately we played Man United the week before, lost quite heavily, and unfortunately David lost his job, which was a shame, because it was always going to be tough when we'd got so many players out injured. But then the next game I came back, Peter Atherton, John Hughes, and a few other lads came back, and we beat Bolton 5-0. Well, 5-0 up at half time, and I scored a hat trick in that perfect hat trick, right foot, left foot, and a header. So we won 5-0. Ron Atkinson came in, and then we played Arsenal the week after. And I remember, I think it was Grimonde and Tony Adams at the back, and the ball just ricocheted to me, and I just had David Seaman to beat, and I tucked it in between his legs. It weren't a 25-yarder, but it was a one-on-one, and I just put it straight through his legs. And somebody took a photo of me putting the ball straight through David's legs, and they caught it at that time. So they were like, all Hillsborough, catching with all Hillsborough, 40,000 people there, and me scoring past David Seaman. So just having that photo, and I've got it hung up in my bar in the garden. So fantastic. And that goal just stands out because that picture captures it, and I look at it and I think, what great memories, what fond memories, and to score past that Arsenal back four was a massive achievement.
Yeah, most definitely. And let's be fair, that back four were, absolute legends, and for many, many years there. You did return to Huddersfield in 2001, 2002, and finished 6th that season. Again, you scored against us in January 2002. You scored a lot against us, to be fair.
I didn't realise I did. I do apologise. I've got to admit it.
No, that was your job, Andy. What was it like to return back to Huddersfield?
It was something I always wanted to do. Like I said right at the beginning, Huddersfield's my club, but I've got to admit, I came back when I was 28. I thought I would have come back and hoped to come back probably later on in my career, maybe 32, just to have a last couple of seasons with Huddersfield. But it was Lou Macari. Lou Macari was in charge at Huddersfield, and out of the blue, I remember it now. I was washing my car out on a Sunday morning, and Lou rang me and said, "Do I fancy coming back to Huddersfield?" And I said, "Well, I'd not thought about it, to be honest." Well, like he said, "I want you to come back here." It was short. It just was straight to the point with Lou. If anybody has dealt with him, like there were no chat or anything. How we're doing it was straight. "Do you want to come back to Huddersfield?" And so I says, "Yeah, of course I do." If obviously Sheffield allow it, and they're happy for me to come back, and because both teams were struggling at the bottom of the championship then, so Wednesday weren't safe, and obviously Huddersfield were rock bottom. So I said, "Yeah, as long as it's fine by Wednesday." And I went to see, it was Peter Shreves and Terry York in charge of Wednesday at the time, and I went to see him, had a chat, and they said, "Well, we need you at Wednesday, but if we're safe, come transfer deadline day, we'll let you go." And so when we went on a good run at Wednesday, we were safe, and Peter Shreves were good to his word and sold me back to Huddersfield. So it was what I was glad to be back, but I thought I came back a little bit earlier than I would have done. But when a manager like Lou Macari wants you, it was a no-brainer. I've got to admit, I didn't think twice about it, especially in the where Huddersfield were as well. I knew they were struggling, but I thought if I signed, I could help them, and maybe we could start off relegation.
And of course, Huddersfield in 2017 reached the playoff final at Wembley and won promotion to the Premier League as well that season. How big achievement was that for the club?
Massive. Obviously, I've played and then been the ambassador for so long. The fans, the players, we never really thought the Premier League would be in our grasp. We never thought we'd ever get there, or it'd be not in this decade, not in next decade. We just thought if we can stay in the Championship for as long as we can and maybe progress, that's the best we can hope for. But one different thing came was our chairman, Dean Hoyle, did a fantastic piece of work by bringing in David Wagner. Fantastic manager. Nobody had heard of David. Obviously, it was Jurgen Klopp's right-hand man at Dortmund. And out of the blue, we found out we got a new manager, a gentleman called David Wagner. And even from day one, it met obviously all the players, all the coaching staff, all the behind the scenes, all the office staff. And you just knew there was somebody special here. You knew the charisma David had, what he was saying, and everything about him was like success. You thought, this man can change it. He can change the football club, and he changed the whole philosophy, all the ethos of Huddersfield Town, and even the fans. We all started believing that maybe we could do something here, and to get in the playoffs with a team we had some good, again, a bit like Warnock teams, not massive individual players, but good players, and like players like Aaron Moy for Manchester City, and they were just like the icing on the cake for him. And it worked them hard. I've got to admit, they were training morning and afternoon. They'd be still there at 7 o'clock. They had to buy floodlights for the training ground because they were still training in the dark in winter, and you just the club completely changed. Yeah, that German ethic, the German work ethic, and it went all the way through the club, even selling the tickets, even selling the merchandise, and that you saw a change in everybody. And this was down to one man. So people started to believe we could get in the Premier League, and yeah, we end up in the playoffs. And obviously, you play Reading, it's one of them. It's a 50-50 game. It could go either way. But I always thought it was going to be our time, and to win on penalties like we did were fantastic for the club and the players. You see the work they did, the hard work they put in that year. They deserved it.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, many thanks. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you today, Andy. So thank you for joining me on Back of the Net ahead of Saturday's game, and all the very best for the season.
Cheers, Greg. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. Thank you, Andy.
Cheers. Thank you.